Cultural capital as invisible currency. In this video, Victoria and I are going to build on the ways that cultural capital can be invisible to us and the importance of that invisibility for shaping social action. In the discussion for week 11, Dylan provided a fantastic example that we're going to use to facilitate our conversation around cultural capital. To summarize, Dylan spoke about the journalistic field and how parts of the habitus, in a sense, is a sense for good news, a gut feeling almost. If we think of the journalistic field, even more elements of the habitus come up, such as the preferred writing style and how to conduct an interview. Imagine you're just starting an internship at the New York Times and your superior asks you to write a quick piece on a verdict in a court case they were reporting on. Your boss has written for the New York Times for 10 years and knows exactly what types of expectations come up with a piece like this. The rhetoric, length, style, and voice expected in the article is something that seems like second nature to them for a seasoned writer and feels very natural. However, to you, the new intern, every element of this article and its style expectations are foreign to you. Your boss doesn't even seem to consider what instructions you might need beyond the few words, "Go write about this verdict," because they are part of the field where the assignment is normal with no need for explanation. The boss's habitus has already been shaped by the field, unlike the new intern.
In this example, the editor's act of providing limited instructions is carried out in a way that Bourdieu refers to as, quote, preconscious and pre-reflexive. In other words, it is not the result of a self-conscious, rational deliberation. But that doesn't make these actions a superficial whim either. Instead, for Bourdieu, the habitus comes from a deeper place, refined so subtly over time that we are not really aware of what is happening. He says, the habitus, embodied history, internalized as a second nature, and so forgotten as history, is the active presence of a whole past of which it is the product. And thus, the responses of the habitus occur, as he says, without any calculation on our part. Our editor has been in the field for years. Over this time, she's accumulated a feel for the journalism game that shapes the way she appraises new participants in the field. I'd like to offer another quick personal example here to deepen our understanding of how our habitus shapes our appraisals of others. So, I was born and educated in the US, went to a small Midwestern liberal arts college, and majored in English in undergrad. Over time, of course, I learned to write and came to think of myself as a good writer and a capable editor. Flash forward to my first year of graduate school when I first read The Logic of Practice by our friend Pierre Bourdieu. I thought, wow, this is great social theory and terrible writing, just awful. It actually made me mad how bad it was. But I was appraising him from a very specific standpoint, a writer habitus that is typically inculcated in American schools. Here we are taught to keep our writing short, linear, starting off our essays, telling our reader what we are going to do, then doing it, then recapping for our reader what we did. Bourdieu's writing, as you may have noticed, does not do this at all. His paragraphs proceed in a circular manner and are filled with sentences that go for 6 or more lines. And so he says, relevantly, the practical world that is constituted in the relationship with the habitus, acting as a system of cognitive and motivating structures, is a world of already realized ends. Like my thoughts about writing, these are procedures to follow, paths to take. In other words, tools or institutions. This is because the regularities inherent in an arbitrary condition tend to appear as necessary, even natural, since they are the basis of the schemes of perception and appreciation through which they are apprehended. This is the invisibility aspect we are alluding to with our title. I had learned a particular way of writing, which I am characterizing here as typical of American education systems. But as I was being educated and as I began to appraise others with these same standards, I was not thinking, this is good American writing, but instead, this is good writing, full stop. American writing standards, an example of the, quote, arbitrary conditions that Bourdieu is alluding to here, became so naturalized to me that they were the lens through which I viewed all other writing.
The habitus generates social action, which then creates and perpetuates social reality. Therefore, social reality is, quote, not as something given, but as something to be done, unquote. Tying these quotes back to the example of journalism, let's focus on how classes are not simply a given, like Marx would describe, but actually socially enacted. If we think about the writing style of the New York Times, this style is only an established pattern because it is being used in article after article, year after year. However, if the New York Times and other outlets with similar style like CNN were to shut down, over time, this valued style of writing wouldn't be the natural style. Just as Shakespeare's way of writing felt natural to his society, but feels foreign and unnatural to us in modern times, the style of the New York Times could see the same process occur. The same can be said for other elements of habitus or class. Unless it is socially enacted, unless it is done, it is not established as the norm. That being said, fields, institutions, and patterns of economic relations have a strong conditioning effect on all of us. This makes it more likely that we perpetuate the status quo, but this is not inevitable. However, since a significant amount of the social action taken in the journalistic field is in the style of the New York Times, that style is naturalized as the style of the field.